I think, almost everything that I was going to do. The thing that I did change is because it's not going to be too visible simply because we're using that matching thread. As I was originally going to do was go into the flying geese necks, but very quickly what I'm going to do is switch gears first. Oddly enough, I love the feel of that when I run my hand across that wonderful piano key. That feels so cool when we do that.
Does it have potentiality?
It has potentiality. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use a measurement. What I'm going to use is what is in the fabric. So these feathers, I want to go ahead and I want to bricklay. I want to go ahead and chalk some bricks right in there. So I'm going to go right between where I think the between is. I'm going to go up and down with my chalk line there so that I know where that is. I'm going to slide over here, and oddly, right here where there's that small area here, I am going to go ahead, and even though that's a tiny area, I'm going to line up the straight line right on the seam. And I'm going to go ahead and put a mark right there. So even though that's going to be a small brick, it's going to visually work. Again, I'm erring to the fabric rather than a specific measurement for this particular border, because we want those feathers that are printed on the fabric to pop out. So I'm just going to, in between, dividing that space visually, kind of creating bricks. Again, once I follow this ditch and go up and down, over, up, down, or I can follow the upper ditch, down, up, over, down, up, whichever way I decide to go, that is going to give that enough stability where it will not distort, especially with the double bat. Where it overlaps, so one feather comes up, one comes down, I get as close to the center of that intersection as possible. Line that up. Pull out a little more chalk. Again, I'm lining up my line of my ruler right on the seam so I can keep that as straight as possible as I'm bricklaying. Okay, so we've got that, and now I'm going to go ahead and head over and quilt that out. Okay, so now I have my stitches locked. I'm going to line up my ruler. I'm going to make sure that my middle line here on my square ruler that I'm using to do the straight line work and the ditch work is lined up there. I'm going to go over, back, and I've decided I'm going to go ahead and use the outer side of that border and come up, follow that in, pause, follow that over, come down. There's my chalk mark, and again I'm going to line up my center line right here on that seam, or the brown faux seam. Down, touch, up, stop. ditch, chalk line, stop, line it up, down, back, and I'm going to repeat this all the way over to the other side. And I love that texture it gives. It gives this wonderful brick texture. And really brings the print of that fabric to life. And there's a reason that your client or you chose that particular fabric to piece your quilt. And so why not highlight it? Pop it out. Little pillow puffs. Over a little bit. Touch. Back. And I like to take a few anchor stitches when I reach the end. That way it doesn't have a pulled thread kind of look. So in other words, can you zoom in right here, Mr. Ritchie? So what I mean by that is when I hit the ditch line that I've already made, bring that right up there. When I come down, I'm going to line that up so I go straight down. I touch, pause, it takes an extra anchor stitch and comes back, and then that way it doesn't have a stretched stitch where I've touched that. If it does, it's not the end of the world if you get that, but I just find it visually more pleasing if you have that little extra anchor stitch in the corners or on a place where you hit a target and come back. Come over all the way to the end. Now I'm going to come down the side here. Line that up. And I'll line up my center line right here on the seam. Over. Back. And do I have room to do the last? I do. So I'm going to come down. And let me see. I'm going to go back up because I did not make a mark there. I'm going to line it up since I didn't do a mark. I know I'm right there, right in the middle between those two feathers. Between. Back. Lock my stitches. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ditch here between the greens and the birds. So I've locked my stitches here. I'm going to go ahead and ditch between the green and the birds. And because I'm using an actual thread rather than the invisible thread, let me get rid of those tails of hers from piecing. I'm airing towards the lighter color because what I'm using is a really light blue-gray towards there. There is a difference, of course, between show ditch and regular custom ditch. And what I'm doing right now is regular custom work type ditch work. If I were doing show ditching, then of course I'd be going a lot slower and I'd be charging a lot more. Okay, so we've reached the end. We're going to lock our stitches. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to figure out how I'm going to go ahead and work my chevron for the birds. Okay, so now I'm going to go up here to the green. I'm going to measure. I've got 45 inches, which is going to be 22 and a half. So I go to my 22 and a half. And I put a little line there with my chalk. You can see right there where I've got that. And now I'm going to go ahead and grab my solid. And I'm going to make a decision about how wide I'm going to want my chevrons. And I think what I'm going to do with this particular one is I'm going to split the difference between my piano keys and the bricks. So I'm going to say 1.5 inches. I think. Let me just look here for a second. Yeah, I like 1.5 inches for the 45-degree chevron. So I'm going to start at this end, and I'm going to put a little tick right down here on the green. 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 7.5, 9. Start again. Okay, 1.5, 3 inches, 4.5, 6 inches, 7.5, 9. Start again. Now I'm coming right up to my center. So now I'm going to go 1.5, 3. I'm going to stop there. And then I'm going to turn this. I'm trying to figure out, there's a lot of options for the center of this chevron. I'm going to give myself a nice dark chalk line. Just like that. And then I'm going to head over to the other side and I'm going to head in the same exact way. One and a half.
Start again.
1.5. 3. 4.5. 6. 7.5. 9. Line it up, start again. 1.5. 3. 4.5. 6. 7.5. 9. 1.5. I'm coming into the center. 3. Okay, so now what I've done is I've ditched between the brown and the birds themselves. I've got my marks in place, as we can see here. I'm going to go over to my first one, and I'm using my ditcher 2 rather than my square because it has the wonderful 45-degree marks on it, and I'm going to line that up. Once I hit the target mark there, as I follow my way across, I'm going to line my 45-degree right on the seam. I'm going to go up, touch, come back, pause, ditch, go to the next target mark, stop, pivot, line my 45-degree up right along the seam. Now I also have my lines here on the sew line to make sure that I am lined up at that perfect 45-degree. Up, back, stop, ditch, target, pivot, line up my 45, double check my other line there, up, back, pivot, ditch, target, line it up, 45, line up my other guy. I'm not going to hit up there. That's why I'm using the ditcher 2. I can slide the ditcher 2 ruler up because it has multiple 45 degrees. Line up my 45 here. Check my line again there. And now I can go up. Walk my fingers because it's a longer straight ruler. I want to keep my fingers to within 2 or 3 inches of where the hopping foot is. Come back, ditch, and I'm going to work my way all the way over to the middle, and then I'm going to start on the other side and work my way back. Same exact way. Line it up. 45 here, up, touch, back, ditch, pivot, line up, line up. I've got 2 reference points to see there. Up, back, now I'm coming up to my center line right here. And it's at this point that I want to take stock. And if I want to make sure I hit my pivots right. And then I also, when I line up, if I've gotten off at all, I want to start to split the difference to get me back to a nice 45 before I hit that middle. Okay, so I'm going to go up, back, step. I'm going to do this last one. Line it up. Up. Back. I'm going to go ahead and lock my stitches. There we go. And then I'm going to start at the other end and I'm going to head my way in. And then when we get back to here, then I can start working away a way to get just a regular V chevron right there in the center.